much is that home purchase really gonna cost you? Before you sign on the dotted line when it's time to close on your dream home, it is crucial to understand one of the most important aspects of the home buying process, and that is closing costs. In this video, I'm gonna break down everything you need to know about closing costs as a home buyer. That way you can navigate the process with confidence and avoid any surprises along the way. Amanda Rivard, local McKinney, Texas Realtor here, and today I'm keeping it real and I'm gonna break down real estate closing costs for a home buyer. Being prepared is hands down the best defense against unexpected stress when buying a home. So let's hop in. So what are closing costs? Closing costs are the fees and expenses associated with finalizing a real estate transaction, typically incurred by both the buyer and the seller. FYI, sellers' closing costs are usually far more costly. These costs are necessary to complete the transfer of ownership from the seller to the buyer and to ensure that all legal and financial requirements are met. Here's a breakdown of why closing costs are necessary. Legal compliance. Closing costs cover various legal and administrative expenses required to legally transfer ownership of the property. This includes fees from the title company itself for things like title searches, title insurance, and attorney services to ensure that the property's title is clear and free of any liens or encumbrances for the new owner. Financial protection. Title insurance is a significant component of closing costs. It protects the buyer and lender against any potential legal or financial claims against the property's title. This safeguard provides peace of mind to both parties by mitigating the risk of unforeseen legal issues arising after the sale. A great example of this is if after the purchase there are found to be legal claims from a previous owner's failure to pay taxes or from contractors who say they were not paid for work done on the home before you purchased it, you wouldn't want to be left responsible for that. And that is where this costly but important closing cost comes into play. A lot of times in Texas, a seller will cover the title policy. It's pretty standard. That's just how it's been done for a really long time, but it is negotiable. Lender requirements. Lenders typically require certain fees and expenses to be paid at closing to cover the costs associated with the processing of the mortgage loan. These fees may include loan origination fees, appraisal fees, and credit report fees, among others. Lenders impose closing costs to ensure that they are compensated for their services and to mitigate their own financial risk. Property taxes and insurance. Closing costs often include prepaid expenses for property taxes, homeowners insurance, and other escrow items. These payments ensure that the property remains adequately insured and that any outstanding property taxes are settled at the time of closing. Closing costs are prorated based on the time you assume ownership of the home, and those will be paid in advance depending on the month out of the year that you buy. You may end up having to pay a full year in advance or just a couple months. You will also be required to pay 1 year of homeowners insurance in advance. Service fees. Various service providers involved in the closing process, such as title companies, escrow agents, and notaries, they all charge fees for their services. These fees contribute to the overall closing costs and are kind of necessary to facilitate a smooth and legally compliant transaction. That's important. Closing costs are necessary to protect the interests of both parties involved in a real estate transaction, ensure legal compliance, and cover the expenses associated with finalizing the sale of the property. While closing costs can add a significant financial burden to homebuyers, understanding these expenses upfront allows buyers to budget accordingly and avoid any surprises at closing. So let's talk about the real costs. In Texas, the average closing costs for buyers are typically 2 to 4% of the home's purchase price. It could even go up to 5%. That means on a $350,000 home that you could need to bring anywhere from $7,000 to $17,500 for your closing costs. I realize that is a huge variance, but that number will vary based on the property taxes of each specific house and also varies depending on the lender that you choose and the fees that they charge. The type of loan you go with will also affect the percentage of closing costs you'll be liable for paying. So when will you have an idea of what your closing costs could be? Well, the lender is required to provide you with the loan estimate within 3 business days of receiving your loan application. This document will give you a good estimate of your closing costs and allows you to budget accordingly and plan for any additional expenses. Keep in mind, as I said, the home you choose, depending on property taxes, especially in Texas, could result in higher closing costs. So this is truly just an estimate. Everybody wants to save money. So what are some strategies to reduce your closing costs? Shop around for lenders. My best advice is to compare offers from multiple lenders to find the most competitive rates and fees. Ask for seller concessions. Everything in real estate is negotiable, so you could negotiate with the seller to cover some of the closing costs as part of the purchase agreement. Consider closing cost assistance programs. There are government programs or grants that may help cover closing costs for eligible home buyers. Hopefully this helped you understand a bit more about why you're paying closing costs and kind of an idea of what you might pay. If you want a more specific number, you can absolutely reach out to me. All my info is below, and as always, like, share, and subscribe for more helpful tips on navigating the home buying journey. Until the next video, y'all take care.